Now, I've been a fan of Lex Friedman for a little while now, and he's a guy that I always aspired to, primarily because he always seemed so intelligent, right? So, calm, and primarily, just because due to his apparent intelligence, right? The first podcast I watched of his was the one he did with Todd Howard about Fallout and stuff like that, because I love those games, so I immediately like Todd Howard podcast. Yo, let me watch that. And ever since that podcast, I've watched several of his podcasts. I don't listen to him often, for a while now, but he's a guy that I actually kind of respected. But recently, literally today, I watched a video called "The Many Lies of Lex Friedman." And at first I was like, okay, this is gonna be just another video, trying to throw dirt at a pretty cool guy, trying to just kind of make like a hate video, because I thought of Lex Friedman as a pretty cool guy. I mean, I follow him on Instagram, so it's like, you know what do you think I was thinking of him? And basically, it turns out he's kind of a fraud, right? Turns out Lex Friedman is not the smart MIT scientist that we thought he was. He's actually not an MIT professor at all, which is FYI. He claims to be like an MIT professor. He like every one of his socials, you will see the big three letters MIT like everywhere. Like this guy, he just wants to be the MIT genius. Like if you look at his profile pictures and actually the pictures where he actually is standing in front of a chalkboard, like it's just such like scientist, cool, smart guy vibes, when in actuality, at least as this YouTube video said, which I haven't double checked, I will be honest. Turns out whenever he did this lecture, which he did a few lectures in MIT for free, that actually he hadn't scribbled all of that. That was just some other guy scribbling, so he's basically an actor. Right. I mean, he probably, did a lot of, intelligence speaking, and he does have a PhD actually from Drexel University, which, if you go on, his Reddit or, on Twitter, and you mention Drexel, like at all, the word in general, you will get banned. On Reddit, he will block you. No, on Twitter, he will block you. On Reddit, he will ban you, or rather, one of his mods, which is it's pretty weird, to be honest, because he's a guy that, like, I mean, look, finishing a university and having a PhD, it's not something a person is usually ashamed of. Like, even if it's not a top university like MIT, it's still a good university, and you still put a lot of work into it. I don't understand why this guy's like, oh no, like trying to push this MIT agenda whenever he's like totally like not even like associated with MIT like too much. Like he's not like a professor there or anything. Like he did one free talk in general, right? Um so that's one of the cover-ups he's kind of covering up for some reason, which is like it's not necessarily like too like negative to cover up something like he's not covering up something evil he did. He's just covering up his kind of original education, and trying to proclaim he's an MIT educated guy, which he is actually not, which is it's kind of bad, but at the same time it's like, okay, one thing, like what are we even talking about, right? But another thing he did, which is actually not that positive, is he uploaded this paper. I think it was 2022 or something, basically about Tesla and self-driving vehicles. And first of all, he didn't upload it to any of the places where actually a scientist goes and uploads a paper, a scientific paper, because that paper needs to be like peer reviewed, which is like, basically it's like, okay, if I make a YouTube video, for those of you who don't know what peer reviewed is, it's basically, let's say I make a YouTube video like I'm making this one, about Lex Friedman, right? And a lot of people will watch that video, and if I say anything that is untruthful, or is a lie or something, that's incorrect, and actually a smarter person or a more knowledgeable person watches that video, they will go into the comment section, they will say, hey, this is actually not true. or they will say, hey, this is actually just great, you nailed everything. And that's essentially what peer review is basically your peers review your work. And he didn't upload it to basically a scientific place where actually that can happen, at least from what I understand. And a lot like this, like I haven't read the paper myself. I'm not a scientist. Okay, I don't have anything close to a PhD. Like I'm being honest. Okay, I don't want to be a guy who lies. I just want to be a guy who kind of gives my thoughts on a situation and kind of wants to present that situation truthfully. At least that's what I proclaim to do. And basically, he uploaded this thing, and his paper. First of all, it was like really rejected by the scientific community, not only because he didn't upload it to a scientific kind of forum, but he also made the paper very biased towards Tesla, which is actually like logical. If you like, this guy has on his podcast the most influential people in the world. Like, think Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, fucking Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. Like, he honest, like, this random ass guy who's like so chill literally has the top people like on the whole planet of Earth. There are like 10 people who are actually like the very tippity top of the most advanced humans alive, and this bro had them on his podcast. Like, it's insane. So obviously he made a very Tesla, biased paper just to kind of like gain like Elon Musk's, like, hey Elon, I made a paper. Yep, it says a lot of good things about you. It sheds a lot of good light on your company. Want to come over and talk? It's basically what he did. So basically, my opinion on this whole thing, on the situation of Lex Fridman, essentially being more like covering a lot of things up. Not like, for example, one thing I found that was like really kind of like, I was like, hey, like this guy's actually kind of like BSing. Like, I was listening to this podcast with Vladimir with the Ukrainian president. I'm not gonna try and say that. And I was listening to I listened to the whole podcast. I was going on the bus. I was listening to it. I was straight up concentrating. And that podcast was just so bad. And it was bad, not because of necessarily kind of the questions or rather the attitude. It was bad because, Fridman kept pushing for this kind of like very delusional idea of let's just all, let's everybody just sit down and let's just love each other. Let's just let's sit down and let's talk it out. Whenever, like, when you look at the conflict of Russia Ukraine, you just understand that one like they can't just sit down and just love each other or something like that. Like, that's just not gonna happen because you have fucking. I'm not gonna get into the politics of it. I'm just gonna say that it was a very delusional take. You can't just go to a prison like let's say like there are a lot of prisoners who have like a life sentence for like things like murder and stuff like that. You can't just go to the prison, talk to the prisoner, and then release him and then expect that prisoner not to do something bad afterwards, not to continue doing those bad things. So basically that was kind of the thing that I was like, bro, like, where's your logic, dude? Like, and if you look at his like Twitter posts, I keep saying Reddit for some reason. If you look at his Twitter posts, he has a lot of like, let's just love each other. And I don't know, I think I disagree with him on a lot of like points like that. But yeah, and this guy is talking to the most famous people. I think one thing that was mentioned in the the Many Lies of Lex Fridman video was that he's kind of doing this primarily to kind of gain favor with these people and not allow these people to come on his podcast and push their agendas, which is it's probably what's happening. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, especially with Elon Musk, with Jeff Bezos, people like that. And in all of these podcasts, he's always like I can't say like specifically exactly like kind of how he approaches to all of the controversies these people have been involved with, because I just don't have the time to research every one of these people. But I've never listened to one of his podcasts, and in none of these podcasts does he raise a controversial point or a point that is against those people. Like he never like says anything about like I remember I watched his podcast, with the Amazon, CEO Jeff Bezos, and he never like asked about Amazon's business practice. Like he never asked like, okay, what's up with your like you overworking, your workers? What about the work quality? What work conditions, of Amazon? Like what is happening here? Like you know so he never like really did anything to kind of like offend them, I guess, but like ask really meaningful questions. But as I said before, I am a huge fan of this. At least I was a huge fan of this guy, and I will probably still listen to his podcast primarily because he has a lot of influential people over. But I do think that his podcasts are, they're cool, but I think I was kind of delusional. I was under his kind of magic spell, if I can put it that way. And I always like I think the kind of message that he's sending, how we're delusional to love each other and respect other people's opinions and freedom of speech. It's in general a good message to send, but it's kind of fake because, like, for example, like the thing with his university. If you mention the Drexel University and him graduating that place on his Reddit subreddit, you will get banned. And there's literally friggin' another subreddit called Lex Fridman Uncensored, primarily because you can't say anything remotely negative about Lex Fridman or like the people he has on his show, like on the Reddit, on the subreddit. So they made a whole uncensored Reddit. And if you actually go on the Lex Fridman like official subreddit, you will see that literally the subreddit is just dead. Like there's only like if you actually like go on r/Lex Fridman, you will just see that there's only like his podcast. Like there's just a one guy just posting his podcasts, and that's it. There's no like there's a few people saying something, but like first of all it's like very unimportant, like very very mid, but it's like very dead, it's very deserted. Like whenever I opened this I was like, damn, this is a deserted town. There's literally nobody here. Like there's no originality. It's all just glazing this one guy. And if you go on Lex Fridman Uncensored, you will see just people talking actually about everything, like an actual community of live people, like an actual like not a desert city, like an actual town. By saying town, but yeah, so basically, I think Lex Fridman like he professes freedom of speech, but at the end of the day, he bans people who say anything negatively remote to about him or anything like that. So yeah, so I think Lex Friedman is definitely a guy who I still kind of respect, primarily because he still does a lot of cool things. But I'm much more kind of I don't know how to put it. Much more like, oh, this guy is kind of a con man. He's kind of bullshitting us. I do want to like him. I do because I always enjoyed his podcast. I would walk. To school and stuff like that, and listen to his podcast on like Winter's Day. It was fucking beautiful, dude. I learned also a lot. Like he has a lot of scientists on his podcast. Like I learned a lot about evolution. Like I was listening to a microbiologist. So I don't think this kind of expose and this kind of controversy and his kind of lies are necessarily like the hill I want to stop consuming his I will be honest content, right? Like yes, he's kind of, but like everybody has like dark spots, and everybody does something shady, but like he actually has a podcast with like scientists on. It's not only big boy Trump and stuff like that. It's not only political agenda pushing. It's also like a lot of cool people who have nothing to do with that. A lot of scientists who actually just do science. So while I will say that the illusion of this intelligent coder, AI coder, Lex Friedman has been, destroyed for me at least. And this video does shed a lot of light on the kind of bad practices of him, of his. I still think that I will still watch podcast of his about with scientists, because I learned a lot about things like the alignment problem. Because as much as he is a con man and he is kind of boring, I will be honest, the people he has on are very interesting and very, perceptive. Like so yeah. So that's kind of the Lex Fridman situation. He kind of fooled me at least for a long time, and I'm not the standard like, oh, he fooled Ez's games. Oh yeah, that means he fooled everybody. That kind of like means I'm just a very gullible dude. But I just listened to his podcast. I never like looked on his Twitter. Like not really. I only now looked on his Twitter and I was like, God damn, this guy's like, bro, this guy is kind of a scam. Because like the things he says sometimes are just insane. But yeah, so that's kind of the how Lex Friedman fooled the internet. Yeah, thank you so much for watching if you did. And by the way, I forgot to say this. I think he positively influenced me, and like even what he says he doesn't do necessarily. I definitely kind of want to do what he says. I want to be a guy who actually like uh goes for freedom of speech. Like even if there's a negative comment on my YouTube videos, I will never like really ban it unless it's like like deliberate, just blatant hate. But if it's like constructive criticism, or at least criticism, like I won't really ban that. Primarily because I do value freedom of speech, even with other opinions. And I have this one uh person I know who's very whose opinions on the world are completely opposite to mine, and I still love talking to that guy. I still love discussing. At least I try and be like open. Like, okay, I understand we disagree on everything, but like, why do you think this? Why do you think that? About a topic. So I do really try to be the guy like Friedman, who wasn't like honest and open to other opinions. And obviously things change. Obviously, something may change in the future, and I may stop being that guy. And maybe I'm lying right now. You never know. Maybe I'm quietly banning everybody, covering everything up somehow for some reason. But basically, I think even though Lex Friedman, does lie a lot, the message he sends is still, in a general sense, positive. So yeah. So basically, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Live long and prosper. Goodbye.